our second session of the day today, we will be having our first panel discussion, and we're going to be introducing a new theme, and that is the future of healthcare. So I would like to welcome to the stage David Hyman, who is the founding partner of Andalus Holdings and board member of King's College Hospital in London and the UAE. I would also like to welcome Johannes Hans Kedzierski, please excuse my pronunciations again, Chief Executive Officer of Novacare Hospital, Douglas Corley, who is the co-founder of Sage Health and co-founder and CEO of Equity Health, Mahmoud Hatem, who is the Vice President for the Middle East and Africa of Maharam and Partners, Haved Gula Mohammed, who is the Group Managing Director and CEO of Martin Dow Group. And this session will be moderated by Haroon Kasim, who is the Managing Director of Farm Evo Private Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. My Paul is just sitting there. I don't use ChatGPT. I have hired someone to use ChatGPT for me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Nutshell, for asking us to talk about something very close to our heart, because we are all belonging to the healthcare profession. And the panel I have, I think it's a very esteemed panel flown from all over the world. And it's my distinguished honor to present this as the future of healthcare session to all of you. I think post-COVID, we have learned a lot of lessons in the healthcare, and we have seen a tremendous upheaval in the healthcare profession from the first world to the third world countries. And I think it has given us a lot of learnings how we see the future of the healthcare. And we face really complex and interconnected challenges that will shape the future. And how do we see the healthcare? I think we want to see the healthcare which is resilient, equitable, and adaptable. The healthcare has expanded beyond treatment to become a comprehensive ecosystem of prevention, wellness, and sustainability. However, there are many challenges that I think we need to address maybe in this session and the future for the healthcare. The first challenge that I feel is the access and equity. With the growing population, aging demographics, and rising non-communicable disease, especially in the lower income and remote areas where resources are limited. We have to leverage innovations like telemedicines, mobile health, and community care to reach even the most undeserved population. The second biggest challenge, and the speakers before us talked about, is the digital transformation. And from artificial intelligence, assisted diagnostics to robotic surgeries, digital tools are redefining the patient care, promising improved efficiency, accuracy, and access. Yet as we more rely on the artificial intelligence and the data, we must remember that the healthcare is ultimately a human-centered service. Technology can support, but never replace the empathy and human touch at the heart of the compassionate care. And the third and the biggest challenge I feel is skilled and resilient healthcare workforce. With the global shortage of the healthcare professionals, coupled with rising demand, underscore the need for continuous professional development. And by equipping our workforce with the skill they need and supporting their well-being, we can sustain the quality patient care and prevent burnout. So I feel that the insights we will have from this panel will help us to see the more accessible, efficient, and humane healthcare future for us going forward. I have a very distinguished panel, and I will request each panelist to highlight how they see the future of the healthcare. And each panelist will get 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll go into the Q&A session with each one. I would request, on my right, Mr. Javed Ghulam. He is the Managing Director of Martin Dow, which is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies of Pakistan, to share his thoughts and how he sees the future of the healthcare. Javed.
Assalamu alaikum and good morning to everyone. The future of healthcare, because I belong to the pharmaceutical industry, and I'm sure many other panelists are coming from a different segment of healthcare, so they will focus on their areas. But when I look at the pharmaceutical industry, what we have seen, a kind of innovation coming in medicine, and particularly in the West, has completely changed the way the treatment are being offered. When we look at the personalized medicine, genomic testing, these were not prevalent in the past, but now we see things have changed. And plus, if you look at the new product development, in the past we were like, we have to wait for 15, 20 years to perform the clinical trials and to bring the product to the market, and it was taking considerably longer time. But due to the use of technology, due to the use of AI, now we have talked about, that turnaround time of developing a product has been reduced substantially. And we have seen during the COVID era also the way the vaccines came in so quickly. And this is, I think, a major turnaround where the new innovative molecules are coming at a much faster pace than what it used to be. Now, at the same time, we are in the third world, in the developing country, where we don't have access to all those technology which is available in the developed market. So it's a big challenge that we faced in a particular country like Pakistan, where the spending on healthcare by the government is very, very minimum. It's not the focus, especially two areas, which is health and education, is one of the least focused area for the government. And most of the hospitals, most of the healthcare services are being managed in a big city like Karachi by NGOs, which is not their responsibility, it is the responsibility of the government. But we have seen that NGOs have taken the major role in providing the healthcare facilities in this city and in this country. As far as pharmaceutical access is concerned to the population here, when you look at the world market, is a big market, and if you look at the regional market, a country like Philippines and Vietnam, they have a market size of like $6 to $8 billion, but pharmaceutical market size of Pakistan is hardly $3 billion. So which clearly says the accessibility of medicine is very, very limited to the population size of 250 million that we have in the country. So this is one area which is access of healthcare facilities, diagnostics facility, and the pharmaceutical. These are the key focus area and the key challenges that we face in Pakistan.
Thank you, Javed, for highlighting. I will go to my extreme left. Doug, your take on the future of the healthcare.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. So at a really high level, I think what the CEO at Martin Dow said is exactly right. As you go from the extreme affluence in countries like the US or Switzerland or Singapore, different geographies, different population bases, comparing that to Vietnam, Philippines, or Pakistan, you have a completely different set of problems. You have different pricing structures for pharma, for medical device. The problems are a myriad, but it comes down to me in healthcare, it always comes down to three things. It comes down to how are you treating, how are you diagnosing, and what are you doing to prevent? And technology plays a role in each of these. Different technologies in different parts of the world. As was very well mentioned, genetic testing in the US has had a huge rise in popularity. A couple of IPOs and SPAC listings during COVID, like 23andMe, and the unfortunate demise. And now, there's a very large company, sort of a Me Too, Me Better version from Hong Kong named Prenetics, which also had a very epic rise, has been very popular. And I think it's now a penny stock. And I don't say that to be negative. I say that to mean these technologies are fantastic. They tried to make them premium products, very expensive, exclusive only to Western markets, very high price product. But that's not the case. These tests cost pennies to make, and they were selling them for $100. The goal to me, and the future for this panel, I hope, is to get better access to higher quality products in more markets. So again, to add to what has already been said, yes, it's a technology issue. AI will be rampant in healthcare. We'll talk about that in our questions. But I'd ask everyone to think first and foremost about what is AI. You have to put something in order to get something out. So really, to me, the fundamental question is, what are the problems that old AI systems have faced, and how is this one different? AI is an engine. So with that, I'll leave a little bit of a teaser. I'll pass along. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Mahmoud, your take on the subject matter.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Mahmoud Hatem. Assalamu alaikum. I'm from Cairo, Egypt. I'm the vice president of MNP, which is one of the largest lobbying and advocacy firm in the Middle East and Africa. While thinking about health, everybody in this room always think that if you don't have health, then you don't have the first thing that you need to have to start your day. So today I'll be talking about the future of healthcare from a policy perspective and from a regulation perspective, and how to have a proper ecosystem in our developing countries from a regulatory framework standpoint and from a legal standpoint. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mahmoud. Hans, you have been here in Pakistan for very long, and you work with Aga Khan, which is one of the finest institutions of Pakistan. Now you're setting up a hospital in Islamabad. So what do you see, the overall Pakistan context and as well the global context in the future healthcare? It's on the top here. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Let me start with the vision of AKU. The Chancellor said, there is no good reason why in a country like Pakistan, people should not have access to first world healthcare. And that's actually what he is doing. And many institutions like NGOs, which was mentioned before, and other private institutions actually are doing the same. Look at SIUT, they have robotic surgery, they have lots of cath labs, all the technology is available. There is the Pakistan Kidney and Liver Institute in Lahore, and we as NovaCare will obviously do the same. So slowly you see technology is coming into Pakistan, maybe not at the same level as in the US or in Europe, but it's happening. Now looking at the future, I see a few issues. One is the shortage of skilled labor. It is predicted that by 2030 there is a global shortage of skilled healthcare professionals, doctors and nurses, of about 10 million professionals. Now that is a risk for Pakistan, because Pakistan, which has a good level of medical education, most physicians after their graduation will go to another country for their residency, and hopefully they will ever come back, but most probably the majority will not. So the workforce is one of the issues that we need to face. The other one is the level of education. I came to know from another conference that in Pakistan about 20 million children do not go to a proper education. So when it comes to use data, remote following of patients, it assumes a certain literacy, which I see in Pakistan should be a high priority to work on. But basically, I'm an optimistic person, and I see lots of initiative happening in Pakistan, being one of us one of them. And we come to talk later about the risks of AI and the challenges and the opportunities of robotic surgery. But basically, I'm optimistic, but we have a few very serious issues that need to be addressed by policymakers and actually everybody in the country.
Thanks, Hans. Dr. David Hyman is board member of King's College London, and he has working for Andalus Holdings. It's based in Dubai. Your take on this, David?
Yes. Thank you so much, and delighted to be here in this vibrant city of Karachi. Thank you for having me. So we talk about the the future of healthcare, right? So people ask me, what is it going to look like in a few years from now? Are we going to have robots doing all the surgeries? Are we going to use nanomedicine all over the place? Yes, while I think these are scenarios that we do foresee a generation from now to have widespread use, this is not how we as healthcare providers, governments, healthcare companies look at it today. If we want to understand the near future, I think what we should do is let's take a step back and look first of all at the demand. What is driving the demand for healthcare today? Whether it's Pakistan or the US or the UK, it's it's incredibly similar. So number one, we have growing populations. So we have more demand for the existing resources that we have. Number two, and again, none of this is a secret, we have aging populations. As we know, the majority of healthcare spend is taking place on the, let's say, the second half of life rather than the first half of life. The third big factor is we have increasingly unhealthy lifestyles, right? From the one hand, we have a far more sedentary lifestyle, so we don't move enough. Our nutrition is not what it used to be. We consume too much sugar, too much processed food. We have too much pollution in the air and elsewhere. And arguably, we have a more stressful life now. All of these factors, every single one of these together, they combine and they lead to a drastic increase in the disease burden across all countries, especially what we call non-communicable diseases. So these are, number one, cardiovascular disease, they are cancer, they're chronic respiratory diseases, they are diabetes, they are neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, etc. These account for about 80% of all death, and that is globally. Now, in the high-income countries, people die of the same diseases a little bit later. In low to middle-income countries, they die of the same diseases a little bit younger, maybe up to a decade younger, but ultimately this is about 80% of all death. So now, how do we, as healthcare providers, again, hospitals or governments or healthcare companies, try to address this demand for healthcare? Well, there are several ways of what we are doing today. Number one, we are building more capacity. We're building more hospitals, more clinics, etc. We are spending more on existing proven treatments. As an example, in the last 5 years, global treatment on oncology has increased fivefold to $250 billion globally. That is far, far faster than the population growth. So that was number one. Number two, we are working on improving the treatments and increasing the efficiency of hospitals, of equipment, etc., in such a way that we can see more patients with the existing resources that we have. The third thing that we do is we are trying to identify, diagnose, and treat diseases earlier. If we treat them earlier, we drastically reduce the cost of it, we are reducing the duration it takes to treat it, and we are distinctly increasing the longevity and the chances of survival. And the fourth one, yes, we are encouraging ultimately everyone to live healthier lifestyles, to eat healthy and to move, exercise. As you can imagine, while this is showing an impact, overall it's not sufficient at the moment to make a strong dent in the overall demand for healthcare. So I think, like my colleague Hans here mentioned, despite all of these things that we're doing, the issue that we're seeing is naturally we have limited resources, limited budgets, limited healthcare professionals. So in terms of addressing the needs, investments, anything that we can do to either use our existing resources better, faster, or to provide more supply is what we see as the key to addressing the starkly increasing and growing demand in healthcare.
Thanks, David. I can see you kind of walk the talk. When you talk about the healthier lifestyle, I can see you really believe in this. My question to you is, with this, you're talking about the chronic disease and the communicable disease on the rise. Now, how do you see that investments in the new artificial intelligence, telemedicines, and centralized patient data systems can help providers scale their services efficiently over the, all this, the latest technology using, how can it become more efficient for patients?
So again, I mean, everyone talks about AI and we get super excited and we think AI is going to solve everything. I don't think that's the case. It will definitely help. Again, when I'm looking at it, the way we look at it is from a healthcare provider perspective. So what matters is what can have an impact in the next 5 years. That's what we're focusing on today. There are other companies you're looking at 20 years from now and to see which one makes it through. But in the end, what the vast majority of governments and companies do is look at what can we do today, next year, in the next 5 years maximum in order to improve the supply. Artificial intelligence, I think there are three kind of areas that we see that are really picking up. On the diagnostic side, I mean, you probably have read about this, but we now are able to use AI, which is really just a way to analyze data, to look at radiology imaging pictures, right? So whether you have an X-ray or an MRI, we look at large data sets, and with the help of AI, which is able to process a lot more data points a lot faster than we are able to do it manually, or that even the doctor can do from experience, we can see trends, we can identify problems, and we can identify issues much earlier than we would otherwise. So that is helping us, again, to go back to treating things earlier, hopefully increasing the lifespan and reducing costs. So that's the medical application. The other thing that we see is AI allows us to use the data, say genetic data or population data, to analyze it in such a way that we can move away from the traditional shotgun approach, meaning just same treatment for everyone, to a far more personalized and focused treatment, right? So your neighbor may have the same problem, but he has a different genetic, he has a different history, he has a different age, everything is different. So while broadly the treatment could be more or less the same, in the past we would give everyone the same medication, the same plan. With the help of AI, we are able to focus that and give your neighbor a slightly different treatment to what we're giving other people. And then the third thing that we see today taking place in AI is increasing the operational efficiency of hospitals and of healthcare ecosystems through things such as, well, we can do telemedicine on the one hand, we can do incoming phone calls, right? If you want to make an appointment, you have to go through a whole system to get to the right doctor, so all of that can be automated. The whole, what we call the back end, the way we are processing it, the billing side of it, all of that we can do faster and in a much shorter time span than before, ultimately freeing up resources to spend on where it's needed most.
Thanks, David. Taking the same theme, Hans, question to you. There's so much data that we are talking about, and the patient's rights and privacy, and there's a scare, the misuses are growing. Yesterday I received an email from one of the conference organizers, and they actually put my password on the email, and I was kind of shocked, because the password is protected. So I was kind of taken back. A big conference organizer would put up my password on the email to everyone, copying everyone. So these types of issues where data driven, how would you ensure that the protecting the patient's privacy? Because everyone has access to it now, the nurse, the patient, the attendant, the doctor, and then it just goes viral.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I would say fasten your seatbelts, because this is going to be a big and major issue. So this privacy of data is there since we have medical records. So for example, if a minister will be admitted to the hospital, everybody, left or right, will try to have access to the data, what's happening with the guy. So there is a kind of curiosity to know what's going on. But now, we have another dimension, because all the systems need to be connected. So the interoperability of data generating systems, be it medical records, be it imaging, be it lab results, be it income data, these data all need to be connected to comply or fulfill the requirements of AI algorithms that with all these data come to a certain conclusion and advice for how to behave or what is the next step in the treatment of this patient. Because, you know, income differences have a decisive impact on the success of certain treatments. So this is a very complex area. So normally you would ask a patient, okay, please give me your consent that we can use your data for whatever we think is useful for your treatment. But I'm afraid that now these systems become massive. Everybody is collecting data. And the AI is actually the art of managing raw data into something meaningful. And that's where the problem is. And I believe that we should ask the regulators to do some rigorous steps in terms of policy definition. For example, imagine that an insurance company, a health insurer, would have access to the same data as my healthcare provider or the government. And I believe there should be concrete firewalls between these systems, because it then not only jeopardizes your privacy, but it can impact your life based on policy decisions. And take, for example, the digital currency. And even the chairman of the European Central Bank says, you know, we will use this digital currency to control people's life. And you can differ of opinion, okay, whether this is for the good of humanity or not, but it jeopardizes my privacy anyway. So, long story short, we need to have regulations to protect the privacy of individuals, and at the same time give these individuals certain say about who am I going to allow to use my data and for what purpose.
Thanks, Hans. I think shifting gears, Mahmood, my question to you is that we talk about the human resource and the challenges that we face, especially in developing countries like Pakistan and Egypt and other countries, where we have a lot of healthcare professionals and we see a lot of brain drain. What policies, you talk about, you work on the policies and with the regulations, what policies and incentives you think can help to kind of retain the brain within the country, the talent, and not, brain drain the healthcare professionals? Do you have some thoughts about it?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Qasim, for this very interesting question about the brain drain in the Middle East. So basically in Egypt, we have from 20 to 30% of the healthcare graduates, they go to the EU or to the US, they get headhunted. And there was a big committee done by the Egyptian parliament in Egypt, by the president of the healthcare committee, how to retain these people from traveling abroad. We started having shortages whether in healthcare professions, in physicians or nurses. So in the past, the Egyptians, they used to go to Europe or to the US. They stay for from 5 to 10 years and then they come back. But now even sometimes they don't come back, or they prefer to go to the GCC. So now we have a few incentives that the government and the parliament did, which is they started giving some competitive compensations for the healthcare professionals in terms of market alignment in salaries, some benefit packages. They also give some career development in terms of training programs, mentorship initiatives. Also, the government tried to improve working conditions in terms of infrastructure investment. They started upgrading the healthcare facilities and providing all the necessary medical equipment. And also one of the most important things that the Egyptian government did in the last few years were the knowledge exchange programs. They activated a lot of fellowship and trainings to retain these healthcare professionals.
Thanks, Doug. Sorry.
May I just
sure.
offer one comment on this side? Because, from our perspective, again, I look at it from a private hospital operator, investor perspective. All of these initiatives by governments are very helpful and they are needed, but I think, in my opinion, they are not sufficient. I think what you need to provide to the local population, in this case, let's talk about Pakistan, what you need to provide is opportunities. So my colleague Hans here is the CEO of a new hospital, NovaCare, that is being built right now as we speak in Islamabad, in affiliation with Imperial College London. So it has the same clinical quality levels, the same structure as a top-notch modern UK hospital. And that is something that is needed. That is something that attracts. There's a lot of demand already for doctors from the UK and US, Pakistanis who want to come home, who are looking for the right setting, for the right opportunity to work. And I believe this is a key example of providing an environment that will encourage all of those to come back.
Hans, want to add something to it?
Just a few comments. It's a little bit more complex, and that has to do with the nature of hierarchy as is applied in Pakistani organizations. And don't take me wrong if I make a few critical comments on how we run our organizations. A few years ago, I gave a semester course at IBA here in Karachi for an MBA class, leadership. All my students had only one objective: I want to leave Pakistan once I have my degree. And I tried to figure out why is there this ever-occurring desire to leave the country because somewhere else life would be better. Is it salary? No, it's not only salary. It's, as I understand from many conversations with young and mid-career professionals, they are not given the opportunities in our organizations that they deserve. And I urge every senior manager or professional to create opportunities for people that are younger or less experienced than you. They might even be better. And I, in my practice of management, try to empower people to give them opportunities to grow and even outperform me. That is my role as a leader, and I think every senior leader in any Pakistani organizations, whether it's healthcare or not, should think about his role in why is this exodus going on.
You have opened a Pandora box and we have time limitation, so I will not go into the details of this brain drain. But Javed wants to add some points to it, and then I'll go to Doug for the next question.
I'd like to add what Hans said here. And because a country like Pakistan with a population of 230 million people here, if people are going abroad and earning very precious foreign exchange for the country, so we don't mind doing that because we're heavily relying on export and remittances to improve our trade balance. But I agree with Hans that it is the responsibility of policymakers, it is the responsibility of entrepreneurs to develop a system in the organization that we can develop more talent pool locally. Instead of, let's say, people will leave, there is no way we can stop them, but we carry now a bigger responsibility as a corporate to provide a kind of a training and development environment in the company where we can develop more talent in-house. And in fact, give more opportunity world to source people from Pakistan.
Thanks for adding all the input. Taking the same cue, Doug, I have a question that, how do we bridge this gap with this artificial intelligence and technology-driven? Can this really help, to facilitate the training and excelling the healthcare professionals as what, Hans mentioned about it?
Yeah, so taking a step back and talking about where AI currently is and where it should be. On the education aspect, yes, very much. Even in China or Philippines, in a country, yes, that may have a healthcare market cap twice the size here, the population is half. And the training of nurses in Philippines, if you go to UAE, or I suspect even Egypt, certainly in Qatar, anywhere you go across the Middle East, you have at least the NPs and the RPNs are from Philippines. And they may or may not speak the local language as well. And they received a 2-year degree, not 4, not 6, not 8, a 2-year degree. And this was trained in a very old school 1960s medical way, meaning they didn't require very expensive fancy solutions. SAP did not come in and provide them $250,000 solutions. And the next generation of training in AI, I fear, will attempt to have that as a business model as well. So I think when we think about where AI can play a role, avoiding politics as the American in the room, the utilization of this, making it very accessible, very utilitarian, democratic, if you will, it's incredibly cheap. The technology itself is basically free. The difficulty is in the data. The difficulty is in how do you train the data? How do you tag the data? And moving forward, where it can play a role in the healthcare industry overall, yes, as Dr. David said, it can play a role in ERP systems, management. It can stitch together data. But again, as I alluded to at the beginning, garbage in, garbage out. If you are unaware of where your data is coming from, or if you have audit trails that fall short, if you have paper records and also digital records, but they're not harmonized, I'm sorry to be the harbinger of negative news. Your medical records are not complete, and they will not be utilizable by AI. If you go back for a quick history lesson to IBM Watson, where a dear friend of mine was the product builder and global head for a decade, her words, and I quote, "It was a PR campaign of multi-billion dollars for a decade before we had any value." And she'll happily speak to this. Again, my point is not to be negative, but my point is much more so. It's incredible potential, but we need to make sure that we use it in the right ways, right? In a country like Pakistan, there's a large population with immense talents. The software that we're building for my company is housed in Lahore. Some phenomenal tech talent. They're Caltech trained, they're Stanford trained, and they chose to come back to Pakistan because they believe in this country, as do I. And there's phenomenal ability to make an impact. And I think, as Mahmoud has gingerly touched on, regulation to me is the key. I worry, again, as the American in the room, as government gets more involved in things, or as things become more bureaucratic because there are now hearing committees and chairing committees and all of these additional layers, that slows things down. And as we all agree, AI's goal and promise is to speed things up. So I think instead of trying to focus just on, what is the tech, it's really what is the implementation of this, what are the sequential steps that need to be done so that we can make sure this has the impact that we all believe it can, and that we focus on the areas, again, as Dr. David said, where the health system is today, and not the 10, 20-year promise. What are the problems today, and how can this tech be an iterative solution? It's not going to take you from 0 to 100. It can take you from 0 to 1 or from 1 to 10. So thank you for the question.
Thanks, Doug, for your interesting perspective on how the government should mind their own business. I'm shifting gears to the Pakistan healthcare, and since my colleague and friend Javed is here, and he can talk about the Pakistan healthcare system, especially we're talking about access to the healthcare, Javed, and we know that especially the rural populations. So how do you think the telemedicine or the new technologies can evolve and better address that disparity, the rural population we have, and we have still a lot of, access issues in Pakistan healthcare system?
Yeah, thank you. If you look at the rural population of Pakistan is around 60 to 65%, but by definition, if you look at big cities, even big cities have a lot of areas which qualify under the rural areas, because the kind of infrastructure and the basic health services are not available in few parts of Karachi, few parts of Lahore, few parts of Peshawar as well. So in fact, the rural population is much higher than what we show, which is not 60-65%, but I think is like around above 70%. Now the real challenge is a big population base, and we need to provide a kind of a healthcare service to them. So technology can play a critical role, and when we talk about technology, then telemedicine is one of the tools that can be used to actually provide the healthcare services to the rural population. Now, remote consulting is one area, one focus area, which can be used by telemedicine, and people in the rural areas can take advice, seek advice from specialists sitting in the urban population here. The second one is that what I see is like a chronic disease like diabetes and cardio, where you have to go and regularly visit the doctors, and this can be maintained through telecommunication, and you can seek advice from the doctors. The third one is a stigma in our society that is all related to mental health, where people are reluctant to go and visit doctors, even in urban population. And I think telemedicine can play a critical role, where we can get the counseling, where we can get the consultation related to mental health issues, and can be treated at an initial stage before it gets worse. The fourth one, I would like to focus in telemedicine or in terms of technology is, I think, capacity development and training and education, which can be spread through technology in the remote areas, in the rural areas, because we have in our country a lot of healthcare workers, and these are not doctors, these are paramedic staffs, and they can be trained enough to at least give a proper guidance to our population in rural areas. Now, what kind of challenges that we face in those areas is internet access, the lack of electricity, and the most important thing that I personally feel is a digital literacy that we have, because overall literacy rate is very low in Pakistan, and when we talk about the digital literacy, this is one of the most important area if you really want to implement any kind of like a technology in the rural areas.
Thank you, Javed. I think COVID helped Pakistan to go into the digital space. It has slowed down, but I think as we speak, it's again going to pick up as we get the shortages. I have an interesting question for Hans, and you you mentioned about the precision medicine. I want to share a data with you, and it's a study which is quoted in a medical journal. So approximately 75% of the drugs for cancer treatment do not help the patient they are prescribed for. More than 70% of the drugs for Alzheimer's do not work on the patient they are prescribed for. In general, less than 50% of prescribed drugs actually help the patients they are prescribed for. So we have this a big challenge, where 50% of the drugs don't work on the patients. And for the fact, I know within the family that a lot of, products don't work, or the medicine don't work to the certain patient. So how do you think this personalized medicine or the precision medicine can help the patients going forward in the healthcare perspective, And anyone wants to add after Hans, I will be happy, because we have to close the session in the 4 minutes, I think.
Yeah, and that will be needed, because I'm not a doctor. I'm just a simple economist trying to run hospitals in the best possible way. But what we have seen over the last 3 decades, I think for a few specialties you can say that the development of medication was quite successful. And I think cardiology is one of the domains where you can say, okay, wow, they did a great job. While on the other hand, for diseases like cancer, I think the progress goes very slow. The research is probably complex. The development is expensive. So whenever there is a drug that could help for a certain population with a certain gene or DNA composition, it will be difficult to have access to these medications. So for a country as Pakistan, I think that's a far future kind of vision. But optimistic as I am, I believe that with all the technology in place and genomics and the thinking about individualized medicine, progress can be made. But we should not count ourselves rich before we cash.
I agree. We're talking about the latest drugs, especially the biotech, products like Ozempic, and you talk about the cancer drugs, which are very precise precision medicine, but they cost a huge amount of money that we have to dish out. Anybody wants to add to this, Doug? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. From my perspective, and we have helped India and Chinese manufacturers go overseas, and we've driven 9 figures in revenue for these companies. So we've dealt with a lot, both in terms of branded products and generics. And there are 2 general schools of thought. The first is everything that we need to discover has already been discovered. The fancy term for this is the pharmacopoeia effect. So think of it like a book. You have all the words that you need to write the book. Now you need to find the right order of these words. And the second is exactly, Hans, as you've mentioned. There's a lot of research. It's very expensive now. It's more complicated now as you go deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole. I think that the reality for these diseases is somewhere in the middle. So if you look at diabetes, now depending on where you go in the world, it's called metabolic syndrome. And it's no longer one singular disease, but it is an aggregation of multiple diseases. Or you look at autoimmune disorders, right? Lupus is the disease of 1,000 syndromes. So these get very bloated and complicated. So I think the reality of how you can get access to these medicines, how you can make progress, the research needs to be more ubiquitous. There needs to be more access with patients. And I do think that data and AI, as this panel has rightly suggested, can play a significant role.
Yes, we saw in the COVID vaccine. In within 1.5 or 2 years, we got the COVID vaccine actually in the market.
With Dr. Langer, a friend at Moderna, they sequenced it within a week.
Within a week.
They knew exactly how they did all the computational biology on how to make this druggable within a month, and then it was entirely up to the regulatory framework, right? And this is where Warp Speed in the U.S., along with DARPA, played a significant role in pushing this ahead. And we're not going to go from 10 years down to 6 months, but I think we can go from 10 to 4, maybe 10 to 3.
Hans doesn't agree, so Hans, you going to go ahead?
No, I was thinking about the COVID vaccine.
David, you want to add anything?
That would require another symposium.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Still some scar tissue.
I mean, look, in the end, I agree with you. We don't have, sometimes we don't have solutions that address 100% of the problem without any side effects. That doesn't exist. And this is not the way how governments look at it. This is not the way how healthcare investors look at it. Today, what matters? If you ask me, do you want to invest in this? Do you think this is a smart way to go down to? There are several questions that I think everyone should ask, whether you're the banker funding the project or whether you are the hospital investing into it. Number one, does it work? And does it work better than what we have today? That's number one. Number two, healthcare is, one way or another, it is a product, right? Is it better, more convenient for the patient than what we have in the past? And thirdly, is it financially attractive? So let me give you one example. You talked about oncology. There's a radiation oncology. Just yesterday I was having a discussion in a hospital here about a product called a gamma pod. It's a radiation device specifically focused on breast cancer. So we look at it, we say, well, what does it do? It focuses the radiation precisely on the tumor, on the cancer tumor in the breast, and thereby pretty much avoiding the vast majority of other organs, etc. So, does it work? Yes. Does it work better, safer than alternatives today? Yes. It avoids radiation to the heart, it avoids skin issues, etc. So that's tick. Is it more convenient? Yes, actually it's a single 15-minute outpatient session. So a patient can come into an outpatient setting, a clinic, 15-minute treatment, she goes out, done. She doesn't have to come back, she doesn't have to wait for months, she doesn't have to repeat the treatment. So patient convenience, yes, this is what people want. Financially, is it cheaper? It's comparable to alternatives, but because of the reduced period of treatment, in the same period of time you can see 10 patients instead of 1 patient. So overall, you tick all the boxes. Now that's the way I think we need to look at healthcare. Not does it solve all the problems instantly at once. This is not where we are today. That's not where we're going to be tomorrow. But does it meet these key criteria?
I wish we had more time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, my distinguished colleagues. I'll just conclude with 1 or 2 liners. I think we as healthcare professionals need commitment for a compassionate, patient-centered care, and that I think will ultimately lead to success. So let's move forward for a dedicating to creating healthcare system that truly serves all. Thank you, gentlemen, for a healthy discussion. I wish we had more time to cover many topics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your wonderful address. We will be breaking shortly for our networking tea, but before that we're going to do the presentation of the souvenirs. So please, you can ask all your questions that you'd like to our wonderful panel during the tea break, but we would now like to welcome and invite Amir Shehzad, the Executive Director of Unity Foods, Asfa from the Nutshell Group, and the souvenirs to be presented by Nazir Salim, who is the President and CEO of HBL. So may you all please rise for the presentation of these souvenirs. Okay, so may we please start with the presentation to Dr. David Heyman. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, almost at the tea break. Okay, so Dr. David Hyman, please could we pronounce the souvenir? Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our esteemed speakers. Thank you. Thank you. And next up we have Johannes Kedzierski. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for our esteemed speakers. And to Douglas Corley, thank you very much for being here today. Round of applause to our speakers. Thank you. And to Mahmoud Khatem, round of applause, and thank you for being here and joining us on stage. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep the round of applause going. We're breaking for tea shortly. There's two more. And to Javed Gulu Mohammed, ladies and gentlemen, let's present him with his souvenir. Thank you very much, Javed. Round of applause. And last but not least, to Haroon Kasim, round of applause. Thank you for being a wonderful moderator. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would also now like to invite Air Chief Marshal Sohail Aman, Usman Youssef, who is the Director of Nutshell Communications, and Rabia Ahmad, Director and CEO of Nutshell Group, for a group photo. Could you please come and join them on stage? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Round of applause. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We will now be breaking for a short tea. So for us to be able to continue all of the exceptional conversations coming up, it is very important that we stick to schedules. So we will be starting the next session at 11:30. Please go and grab your tea and refreshments and come back in the hall for an 11:30 sharp. Don't forget, we're currently live on Nutshell Group's YouTube channel, Facebook page, LinkedIn. So please make sure to post any pictures and tag the Future Summit, What Matters Now, the Nutshell Group and Unity Foods Limited. Thank you.